Hi, Matthew Mason, Director of Mavenzeal, and I'm about to join the Online Prosperity Show, where we're going to talk about how you can leverage your expertise, creating this ecosystem of digital assets to really scale your business and your offering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today I've got someone who, much like a superhero, has a knack for turning complex ideas into simple, scalable frameworks. And with over 24 years of experience in learning design, my guest is the founder of Mavenzeal, who's also helped thousands of business coaches and experts turn their knowledge into impactful design programs. I don't know if I got that thousands right, Matthew, but you're here now. You could always tell us a little bit about that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Prosper. Yeah, look, it's probably not quite in the thousands, but it's been quite a lot of people that we've worked with over the years. I don't know how many. It's probably hundreds of thousands of hours of learning content we've created over those years. Yeah.
Absolutely. I always like speaking things into existence. Maybe by the end of this show, you will actually claim that you've helped 1,000 coaches, because our audience are usually coaches and consultants that are looking to create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Now, if you're watching this and you're wondering, why should I be bothering with Matthew Mason? Well, he's an award-winning professional who's shifted from the corporate grind to heart-centered work, especially working with small businesses, and he's here to help us unpack the magic behind his methodology. But I think before we dive into this story, because I'm intrigued, especially when I meet people, who they are and why anybody should care. Here's something you might not know about Matthew. Apparently, he started his career in the horse racing industry, and he even worked in Japan. Now, Matthew, watashi wa nihonji no tomodachi ga imasu.
Got no idea. No idea. It was a number of years ago, and I really didn't actually learn that much Japanese while I was over there. It was a bit unfortunate. Where I was working, I had a couple of other Australian colleagues, and we had some staff that could also speak English. So was never forced to learn the language, which was a bit of a pity. I think I probably, in hindsight, I probably should have immersed myself in the culture a lot more and tried to learn language a lot more as part of that process.
Absolutely. Well, even though you didn't learn the language, but you did come back home with a few of the concepts, the ikigai, the kintsugi, and everything else Japanese, that comes along with it. As long as you don't call crocodiles alligator, what did they say? Alligators or alligator crocodile or whatever it is, arigato, for saying thank you. Anyway, I digress. Now, like I said, from horses to digital learning programs, we're going to explore how these unique experiences have actually shaped Matthew's success. So you'd want to stick around, because I think this is going to be a game changer for anyone that's looking to scale their business and leave a lasting impact. Now, Matthew, I think I've overdone my intro here, and I'm already going into areas that I know nothing about. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey, especially from horse racing to instructional design.
Yeah, look, it's certainly an interesting journey. But as you said, I worked in the horse racing industry, worked across a number of places in Australia, spent a year in Singapore working in the industry there, and then also went and spent 18 months in Japan. And it was sort of that point in Japan where I was working over there, but I was also starting to do some teaching and teaching some of the Japanese staff that we're working with. And then on my return to Australia, I discovered there's actually a school here that was in Brisbane, which is where I'm based, that was actually teaching Japanese students how to work with horses and work in the race industry. So I was lucky enough to get a job there, and I initially started out as a riding instructor, teaching them how to ride horses, and then I'd been there probably about 6 months, and then the manager said, "Oh, we need someone to step into the classroom. Can you step in the classroom and start teaching a little bit of theory?" And I went, "Why not? Yeah, I can do that." And I said, "Okay, so what am I actually teaching?" And they handed me these resources, which were probably not much bigger than a pamphlet. They were very, very thin on, light on in terms of content. And I said, is that all it is? And they went, yeah. And I said, okay. And they said, well, can you do something better? And I went, okay, yeah, probably could. And so that really then started me down this path of developing training materials. And I ended up writing all of the resources for the whole training organisation, which included for apprentice jockeys, stable hands, trainers, etc. And that really just put me into that instructional design business and went, what do I do? Do I stay in the racing industry or move into training industry? Was obviously quite good at it. And so that's where I stayed in the training industry and moved on from there.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for taking us on that sort of journey. Now, horses, was this a passion or is it something that just happened? Because I know my little girl is annoying me right now. She wants a pony, but we hardly have any space for it and nobody has time to look after it. What was your allure to horses?
Yeah, so I suppose I was lucky enough. I grew up just outside of Canberra. My parents had a property. It was 5 acres, so not a huge property, but big enough to have a couple of horses. And so yeah, so we next door had some horses, so we started riding, and then I got my own horse, and yeah, and it just went from there. And I think it was probably about year 11, year 10 or 11 in high school, and we had to do work experience, compulsory work experience. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what I want to do. I've got it, but had to go and do this work experience. Went, oh, well, there's racing stable down the road. I'll contact them and see if I can come and just work with the horses for a while. And yeah, and so I did that, and then the trainer said to me, oh, well, if you want to come back and work on weekends, you can. I went, yeah, well, I need some cash. That's good. I'll do that. So I started working weekends and then started working school holidays. And then one day we were in the stables and we were working on a horse, and he joked around to one of the other staff, and he said, oh, did Matthew tell you he's going to leave school and just come work for me full time? And I said, no, I'm not, but you give me a job when I leave school. And he went, okay. And so finished year 12 and went, might as well, I didn't want to go back to do any more university or, any other schooling. So I said to the trainer, hey, I finished school, give me a job. And he went, okay. And that sort of really just took that passion of mine of having my own horses and riding and things like that, and put it into a bit of a career, which I spent, as I said, a number of years doing across Australia, Singapore, Japan. Was very lucky to do that.
Absolutely. Now, what sort of horses were these? Are they the ones we see in the Melbourne Cup?
Yeah. So they were thoroughbred race horses. So nice big heavy ones that go really fast. So it can give you a bit of an injury if you fall off them, because some of them can be quite flighty and things like that. But yeah, that was the type that we're working with.
So you're not afraid of hard work then, because I know horses, you got to feed them, clean them. What is that? Cleaning their hooves and everything else along the way.
Yeah. Look, it is. It is certainly a hard job. Like the people that actually do the hands-on on the ground work, looking after the horses. It's a 7-day-a-week job. The horses can't. You can't just take a weekend off and the horses take care of themselves. So yeah, certainly is a hard job, and a lot of early mornings as well. So I suppose probably brought me along to be happy to do a bit of hard work at times when needed.
Absolutely. Now you then shifted from this hard yaka to hot work. First of all, could you maybe explain how that would have happened? You must have missed the early mornings, the getting kicked by horses and getting bitten. They bite, don't they?
Well, yeah, they can do and things like that. So yeah, basically, as I went along and went, okay, well, I need to sort of move on. I'd gotten a little bit stale where I was, and went, well, I either stay in the race industry or I go into the training industry, and I made the decision to go in the training industry and took on a role as a training manager for a mortgage company, and then moved on, and I was doing some other work, and then an opportunity arose for me to start up my own business. And so I started doing that and started working with a lot of large corporates. But then probably about 2 years ago, that's where my shift really came about. I got a bit jaded with working with large corporates. Sometimes, things you want to try and get things done and try and make an impact, and decisions were probably made that you didn't necessarily agree with, because it was like, oh, people, we don't really care about the impact, we just want the training to be out there. And so at the same time we started working with a couple of other solopreneurs, smaller coaches, experts, and could see what they were doing was actually really having an impact on their clients. And so really moved away from doing that hard work with the large corporates to the hard work and working with some of those solopreneurs and small business owners to really help them create an impact in the world.
Absolutely. See, when people go into business by themselves, first of all, it's never easy. And you just went into the whale side of business. You didn't even start a little bit with a mom and pop shop. You just went straight for the big leagues. Wasn't that scary? Because not a lot of people come back alive from the wrath of the corporate world.
Oh, it was a bit of a scary thing at the time. That whole, what am I doing? Am I making the right decision? But yeah, look, I just decided, look, I've got to put it out there. I've got to give it a try. See what happens. And if it doesn't work, well, I'll just go and find myself another job, and come back to the PAYG role. And yeah, as it turned out, that was a bit over 12 years ago now, that happened. So yeah, it's been okay. It's certainly been a hard journey though.
Fantastic. You're not a statistic anymore. Like they say, not a lot of people go past the 3-year mark. Okay. But when you obviously are working with corporates, they've got big budgets, they already know where they're going. It's just yet another belt buckle on their saddle, so to speak, that you're going to be adding on. But if you're starting to work with small to medium businesses, coaches and consultants who literally hand to mouth sort of way of being, a lot of them struggle with imposter syndrome, and I think that's the reason why they actually don't go any further. How are you helping them overcome this sort of self-doubt? Because that's one thing that I also come across a lot of people. They just want to stick to their lane and pretty much not ruffle any feathers or muddy any waters.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a common thing we see. And look, it's really just about just working with them and just letting them know that what they've got some really great, valuable expertise, and helping them get it out of their head. That's the big thing. We see so many people that have got this, they've got all this information that's really invaluable, but it's stuck in their head, so it's intangible. And really getting them to get it out there and let them see that, yes, this is actually valuable and is actually going to help people, and that they are actually an expert, and to try and get them over that imposter syndrome by getting content out there, getting people to react to their content, getting a course, or could even be a mini course or other resources out there, and just seeing that, okay, people actually are responding to what you're saying and how you're saying it and your materials. And hey, guess what? You're not really an imposter.
Absolutely. And I'm still trying to get my head around this Mavenzeal. What's that?
But basically, yeah, as part of the shift, so we wanted to rebrand. And around the time, I was doing some work with a business coach by the name of Andrew Griffiths, and he wrote a book called "Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive. Why Not Make It You?" And in the book, he talks about this idea of how you can't put lipstick on a wombat. And as part of that went, well, okay, if we're actually going to change things up, we probably need to change our name as part of that process. And also change a name that's probably going to mean a little bit more. Previously, we were known as Superb Learning, and that's what we did, and that's what we did for our corporate clients. But it really didn't resonate with our new audience that we're targeting, the solopreneurs and the small coaches and experts. And so we wanted a name that meant something. And basically, we landed on Mavenzeal. So if you look at actually the origin of the word Maven, it's in about 3 different languages. It actually means an expert. And more specifically in Urdu, it actually means an expert who likes to share knowledge. And then Zeal is all about passion. And so Mavenzeal is all about passion, experts who are passionate about sharing their knowledge, which is who we are. And it's also the people that we want to work with. And so that's where the name comes from.
Absolutely. I quite like that because, well, if somebody has information, because I viscerally believe in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. Okay. So, in order for us to live the best life, we need to be able to learn from people that have gone past or gone through some sort of
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
experiences, and then we then need to be able to contribute to others so that they too can be do and have a happier existence. And I'm thinking and I'm feeling like you've encompassed all of those three things into one, where you are now handing it back to the people who may have been stuck in their business, and now
Mm.
you're saying, hey, you actually have a lot more to offer than that one offer or that one course that you've got going for the last 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. And also as well that we see a lot of these coaches that probably also struggle with the technology, and maybe they haven't actually got a course, and maybe they're still stuck in that working one to one, or doing the sort of the face to face work, and potentially at that stage of burnout, because there's only so many clients you can work with in that model, that you actually need to look at creating this digital twin, looking at leveraging expertise through technology. And that's one of the things we really help people do, is go, okay, well, you probably started out business, and I noticed you mentioned this in one of your videos, you want to start business to actually help your clients. But then you can't do that if, well, you can't, you can help a couple of clients, but if all of your time is spent, just purely delivering information, you're really not getting that huge amount of impact. And so what we're looking at is taking a lot of that information, putting it into the digital format, creating that digital twin, and giving those coaches and consultants and experts an opportunity to deliver their content in other ways, which frees up their time to create more impact for their clients.
Because you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands full. You can imagine you want to do courses, you've got group coaching, you've got all the things, and you're trying to hold on to them. How are you going to climb the rungs of you actually being successful? And I'm supposing what you do is help people leverage their knowledge and things of that nature. But Matthew, if it was easy, everybody else would be doing it by now. You're turning this knowledge into high ticket programs. What's the secret sauce of actually just transforming these complex ideas into digestible, impactful content?
Yeah, well, I think, well, it's actually interesting use that word secret sauce, because that's part of it, and that is actually helping people to create their own secret sauce, to create a framework. And we've partnered with an organization called ThinkWrapped, and we help to actually create visual models. And those visual models really help to lay out what that secret sauce is. And from that, basically what happens is, once we do that with those clients, they've got a huge amount of clarity around who they're working for, and what they are offering, and what what is the benefits that they're going to provide to those clients, and the journey that they will be able to take those clients on. But also it then becomes this framework where we can actually then create this whole ecosystem of digital assets that really fall out from doing that. Once you've got that secret sauce and you've got that foundation, it becomes very easy to go, great, well, now we've got this. This is the structure for your high ticket program. This is the structure for your lead magnet. This is the structure for your webinar. This is the outline for your book. And by packaging those things up in that way and creating that secret sauce and creating that framework, it gives you a very solid model to base everything on. And that's the big thing I think that a lot of people sort of struggle with, is going, okay, well, where do I start? How do I start doing this? I've got all this knowledge. What do I put into place? And we find that, creating that framework as one of those first things really, really helps to get that clarity, and allows people to move forward. And then from there going, great, now we're going to start ramping up all of this content, whether it's high ticket programs or whatever.
You see, Matthew, in my experience, fish do not see the water that they swim in, and neither can people see the air that they breathe. And I'm
Mm,
supposing when you start working with people, first of all, the clarity is on the coach themselves, because then now they have an understanding of what it is that they're actually putting out there. And it also, if they're clear, it's easy for them to impart that knowledge onto the people that they are hoping to create breakthroughs for, because so many people hold on to their information because they're afraid if they give it all, then they don't have anything for tomorrow's session or
mhm.
the session to come. But that actually prevents breakthroughs from actually happening, especially on coaches. And I just heard that you're big on using visual models to boost those sort of client conversions. Maybe can you explain how these models sort of work and why they're so effective?
Yeah, so there's four key models that we work with. The first model is the results model. So this could be, for example, the hero's journey. You know, you think about the hero's journey, you have the origins where people start, and then you've got that end goal of where people want to be. And you generally along the way, there's probably some sort of roadblock challenge, something like that. And by creating this model, you can actually say, right, by working, this is the results we're going to get to. We're going to get to this point. And people can then obviously identify and go, right, well, yes, I know I started there. That's where I want to be. I can see here on this, on this spot, this is where I am. I'm stuck at this roadblock. And so that's one of the models. We can also do it. Certainly for us, we talk about it more of as a matrix and go, well, the two key things you need to have is, customers and have your content online. And, if you are, delivering to a small volume of clients and you are, and delivering one-to-one, then you in what we call the red ocean, because it's red from all the sharks and the blood in the water, because you're really just competing with all of the others and often just competing on price. So that's one of the key things, is those results models, so people can get this clear vision of where they want to be, and where they are right now. The next model is then the answers model. It's saying, okay, well, to get there, these are the things you need to put in place. The 5 things, the 6 things, 7 things, whatever it is, the key pillars that you need to put in place to get there. Then the next model is the process model, which is the process. How we take people from pain to prize, to get to that end result that they want. And then the last model is our target model, which really talks about the benefits of going, okay, well, if you actually get to that end goal of where we talk about in the results model, and you put these key pillars into place and you follow this process, well, this is the benefits you're going to get. For example, with our clients, we talk about that, the big benefits is they're going to be able to create more impact. They're going to have a profitable business, but also going to be able to have the lifestyle that they desire.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really clear that, these are all step-by-step things that once you've gone through them, it's like maybe the process that people go through when they are learning to ride a horse. You know what I mean? You give them the step-by-step. First of all, you mount the horse, and then second, just be one with the horse, and then maybe learn to gallop, and then before you know it, they're winning the Melbourne Cup, or whichever way it is. But the one thing about all of this is it involves a lot of technology, because once the processes have been created, they're going to need to be distributed. They're not just going to be sitting on a hard drive somewhere gathering digital dust. Okay. And
Yep.
with the people that you work with, coaches and consultants, do you maybe face a bit of resistance when it comes to adopting new ways of doing things or technology, or creating these digital assets, and then how are you guiding them through all of this? Because I can only imagine there's just so much that it's always been done like this, in our industry and in our ways.
Yeah, look, and I think it really is about us becoming that trusted advisor, and having them trust that we know what we're talking about in terms of the technology piece. And a lot of what we do is actually done for you in that technology space, because we know there's so much technology to deal with. And that's one of the big things that we pride ourselves on, is helping people to actually put those things into place, because often just going, hey, this is what you need to do. And I know that they're probably going to go back and probably not going to do it because they're technically challenged or the fear is going to stop them from doing it. And so we step in and we actually go, look, we'll help you do it. We'll do it for you. But also as well, it's about just coaching them through that whole process and going, Kate, like, people who are feared of being on camera and giving them some tools and tips on how they can actually get on camera, what they should be doing and how they should present themselves, how they should be, talking and presenting. And just also as well explaining to them that, and I always liken this concept to the Simpsons cartoon show, and say, look, the first course you put out, the first piece of content you put out is going to be good, but it's not going to be perfect, and you're always going to want to be changing it. And I bring up this image of the cartoon, The Simpsons, and it shows the drawing of the Simpsons family in the first season, and then I think there's another drawing beside it, which is about season 20, and they're completely different images. But just highlights that yes, that your first version that you put out there is actually going to be a little bit rough and raw, and over time you can refine it and get better. But what I also talk about is, well, if they waited, the 10, 15 years until they had the images perfect, would the show have been a success? Probably not. And the same thing we say with the content, you just got to get your content out there, get people to resonate with it, get comments, get feedback. And from that, then we can go, okay, well, this is what people are saying. This is how we can change it. This is what we can do better. How we can use technology in different ways as part of that whole process.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. I just had a quick glance of what Homer used to look like. And yeah, nah, he would have been so angry if he continued looking like that in the series. So yeah, that's a really good analogy. So many people wait for it to be perfect. So many people wait until it looks like what they hoped it would look like, but that day would never arrive. And as you have said, so many people waste so much time just waiting. But is it because maybe it could be a matter of funding, or it could be fear, or just the actual implementation bandwidth? Because you worked with corporates before, right? They already have teams for teams. All right. And they have assistants for assistants. You know what I mean? So it's not the privilege that a small to medium business sort of have. And my question now is, you've worked with sort of large businesses and now smaller heart driven sort of businesses. First of all, where do you get the patience, man?
Oh, look, it's actually a lot more. I much prefer working with the smaller business and coaches than the large corporates. As I said, it quite often was hard work. I remember one time I went in and had this great session with a number of people on a team, and they wanted to create this learning experience, and we came up with this really cool idea. It was going to be this wonderful story, and it was going to be engaging, and it was actually a really boring topic. And we had this great idea, and then they were all excited about it, and I was excited when I finished the meeting with them, and then caught up with them a couple of days later. I went, okay, how are we going? We all good? And they went, oh no. We talked to our manager about it, and he said, oh, he just wants a PowerPoint. And it's just like, no, and it wasn't going to have any impact. Whereas we're actually working with some of these coaches and consultants, we're actually working with the decision makers. We're working with the experts themselves, and being able to see how we can help them take that valuable expertise and knowledge and turn it into these amazing assets, whether it's a program, a course, whatever that might be. And we know that that's going to have impact on people. So that's, I think, we can see that vision moving forward and know how much it's going to help people. Then it makes it very easy. We don't need too much patience with it in that space.
I like that. And I like the language that you're using, because money follows assets. So many people just create within Meta or Instagram or LinkedIn and just leave it there, not knowing that if you're not owning your own media or owning your own assets, you literally have zero, nothing. So it's one of those things that people like yourself are absolutely changing the game and making it easy for people to actually start owning their own content, because for the past 10, 15 years we've been feeding all these social media platforms with our
Yeah.
knowledge, and now they're using it against us. And you know what I mean, we've got nothing to show for it. But you've been awarded, from what I've gathered, the Learning Professional of the Year award. Congratulations, my good man. First
Thank
of
you.
all, how did that sort of recognition impact your confidence and the trajectory of your business?
Oh, look, I think it really got rid of some of that imposter syndrome that I probably still had. I was very lucky. This was a program that I actually developed for Domino's Pizza. So they were one of our clients at the time. And it was still quite early on in my career of me going out on my own in business. Um, and to get that was actually quite good. And it was actually quite interesting. On the awards night, I actually met someone else who worked for a bank, and ended up doing work with them as well. So it just brought me out, I suppose, gave me that recognition that I probably needed. And from there, people went, okay, well, hey, we want to do some work with you. And yeah, being given that recognition really just went, okay, well, hang on, that was great. And that, just to get that, you talked about imposter syndrome before, and there's always that, nagging doubt creeping in, going, am I good enough, and things like that. And then when you get some sort of award like that, it sort of dispels a lot of that stuff.
Well, congratulations. It's first of all not an easy place to crack in, because you're fighting
Mm.
against RTOs and tapes and all those people that are predisposed to actually be on the journey to educating people that would have had first preference, but they actually chose you. I mean, speaking of Domino's, did they give you a timeline to say if this is not done in 30 days, then you get it free, like they do with
Right.
the
No, there was no sort of timelines around that on that situation. So yeah, that was that would have been a bit hard. But look, it was a good program that we developed, and I know that it was still being used at quite a few years later, across the organisation. So that was great to see that. Mm.
Absolutely. I mean, when people are educated, you change lives, you change perceptions, you change people's
Mm.
trajectory, and you actually change the quality of lives for a lot of people. And you're doing this for the small to medium, coach or consultant. I know you've spoken about the banks and also
Mm.
Domino's that you've done work for, but maybe you can bring it back a little bit, because Sally is now rolling her eyes all the way back and is already seeing the breakfast she had this morning. Could you maybe share with us an example of a client who successfully scaled their business using one of your online programs, and what did their transformation look like?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of our ones that we did some work with quite early on was a lady who had written a book. She was a nutritionist, and she had written a book about healthy eating for children. And what we actually did is we helped her turn that book into an online course that she was then able to sell into daycare centres. And so then the daycare centres were then using the course and this was for those daycare centres or childcare centres, that were preparing meals for their children. And so they were using the book as a way of coming up with recipes. She then went from that. She then actually created a platform that actually allowed people to create a meal planner. So they could actually go, okay, cool. Now I understand about these meals and what I need to do and how I can do healthier eating for children. And then create this meal planner, which then allowed those daycare centres to very easily plan out what shopping they needed to do, what the meals were going to be for the week, all of those sorts of things. And so that really took her from just being a nutritionist who was working one-to-one with her clients to actually reaching a whole new target. And then the next step was then the next step she'd planned, was to then look at doing providing the same course or very similar course, and also a similar meal planner to actually the parents of the children that were at daycare centres, because the kids would have gotten used to eating these meals during the week. which would make it a lot easier for mum and dad to then change the children's diet at home.
Wow. Absolutely. That is something that's amazing because, I mean, with the advent of the pandemic, the dining room table has been changed from being a place where people consume nutritious food to being the office, to being the school, to being the laundry
Yep.
department of the house. And if you're, helping a nutritionist bring that back into families, you, my friend, are doing your little part in making this world a better place. So kudos to you.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's it. That's the thing. It's that seeing that impact that we can make by helping people get their knowledge out there. That's the thing. That's the joy that we get out of it. And knowing that yes, this is going to make a difference in people's lives, just simply because helping other people to get their knowledge out there.
Fantastic. I think this is something that you really, really took, head on. So kudos to you. Now, if somebody's excited about all of this, and wants to know a little bit more or find out how they too can be a Mavenzeal, what would be the best way that they can, get started in creating their own digital assets?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a few things they can do. Certainly, look, one of the first things is, as I said, look at creating those frameworks, playing with visual models. We've got a couple of online courses that guide people through how to do that. But for me, would be really, taking that moment to go, okay, what is it that I'm actually going to be delivering? What is that piece of knowledge, that expertise that I want to be known for, and focusing on that. And then structure out that program and work out what that program is going to be. Certainly, if they want to reach out to us and have a chat, we can certainly have a good chat with them about that process. We've also got a scorecard that that people can do, and that scorecard actually focuses around the 6 keys, the 6 key pillars of our answers model that I referred to earlier. And so people can actually do the scorecard and see, well, where are the things they need to be strong? And is it client clarity? Is it the signature solution? Is it, the technology and tools? We've got a number of questions in that scorecard and they get a report and rating afterwards. So there are a couple of ways they can actually engage with us and get a bit of a start in doing those things.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us to your world. And if you would allow us, I will put all those links in the show notes below so that people can start creating their own digital assets and leverage their expertise so they can deliver impact to the world. Yeah.
Yep. No, thank you. Look, and that's the thing. It's really about, and I suppose the other thing is, thinking about that ecosystem of assets. Don't just think about our course. So often we see people go, oh, I want to create a course. And that's great. But there's this whole other ecosystem of things they can create. Interest products that are just going to generate interest or make people possibly problem aware, or make them solution aware. And then you can actually do your cheaper, low interest information products as part of that. And also then you can create those more products that are actually going to be more about integration, actually, putting things in place and getting the skills and actually getting things done, and then moving people through to mastery. So there's a whole lot of an ecosystem of things you can create. And that's one of the other things we see people challenge with. Is they often go, I need to create a course, and that's it. They're sort of a little bit blinkered in their thinking and don't think about all of the other stuff they can actually create out of that. Or maybe it's not one course. Maybe it's a whole range of smaller courses that, people can do. And it might be someone's just got one small problem and that course might solve that problem, whereas someone else might need to consume 5 or 6 of the courses to get their bigger problem fixed.
Absolutely. I don't know why people do this, but we all sort of go through even just the McDonald's menu. It's not just a burger and fries. There's just a lot of other things that they just put on the menu, even though you just want a Happy Meal. Okay. And you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, so many of us just put out one thing and we expect people to just buy that particular thing. And I think as what Matthew says, blinkers only work on the horses on the Melbourne Cup. We need to have a wider scope and a wider ecosystem into the things that we are going to be doing. Now, Matthew, I mean, obviously, this is quite an interesting subject, especially on my part, but I've just been signaled that we're running out of tape here. So before we do that, I just wanted to know, there's this rise of, let's just say, the elephant in the room, AI, digital learning, all of these avatars, metaverse, all of these words that just are a high sounding nothing and a lot of confusion to a lot of us. Where do you see the future of maybe online education and course creating sort of heading, and what should experts or these people that are watching just really focus on to stay ahead?
Yeah, look, I think AI is obviously a big thing, and it's great and it's terrible. I'm seeing some really terrible stuff where people are using AI as a content generation tool. We're seeing people out there that are putting ads out and saying, "Hey, we can use AI to find the great niche and then create the content for your course." You don't have to have expertise in it; you just use AI to do that. But yet there is there's nothing coming from that individual. There's none of the stories, none of their expertise coming into that. And that to me is just turning out really bland, ordinary learning experiences and probably not actually going to create a huge amount of impact. And so I see that being a big challenge. But it's also a great opportunity for those coaches and stuff. And not saying don't use AI. You can use AI as a tool to help you generate ideas and to help you to write content, but use your own expertise in there as well. And I think that's a big challenge or opportunity for those coaches to go, right, well, I actually want to rise above that and actually create this amazing experience that is not just some AI course that's been turned out there. The other big challenge, the other big opportunity, I should say, is with AI, is to look at not just generative AI, but look at the tools that we've got now and the ability to create AI bots and things like that. To think about taking so much of that knowledge and expertise out of your head, loading it up and creating that really quite true digital twin that you can actually feed this huge amount of knowledge to. And then you provide that to your clients. And so it might be your client has a burning problem. And it might be, maybe they're in the US and you're in Australia and they're trying to do something and it's not quite working and they need your help right now, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're asleep. But if you've actually built this AI bot, potentially that bot is using your knowledge and could answer that question for people. And I think that's one of the big things. Coaches and consultants and experts can really look at how they can leverage their expertise through these AI tools, not just using it to generate random content, but actually using the natural tools to actually make decisions and provide the appropriate responses for clients to help them solve the problems when you're otherwise indisposed or busy, or maybe you're just sitting on the beach with your family or whatever it might be, but you're still providing the knowledge and expertise to your clients and helping them solve their problems.
Fantastic. Wow, that's a very good perspective to have, because so many are just maybe just sitting back and waiting to see how it will all unfold. But I don't think that's the way to go. And I like that concept of a digital twin, because you literally can be leveraging. And I think that's part and parcel of the assets that you help people to create, right? It's obviously, imperative that somebody does something like that. Well, now, Matthew, I can't thank you enough for the time that we have spent on the call today. I mean, what a conversation. I mean, we came from horse riding all the way to the future now. Have you ever been back on a horse since? I just had to ask that.
I haven't ridden a horse. Probably been about 15 years since I've actually ridden a horse. So yeah, because I was doing training and then I'm pretty much moved into a classroom full time. So so I went from when I was in Singapore, I was probably riding 15 horses a day. When I was riding instructor at the training school in Brisbane, I was pretty much on a horse every day, just doing 6, 7 lessons just riding around the track with the students. And so, yeah, it was a nice change actually to get off the horse a little bit. But no, have not been back on one for a while. I think the body's going to feel it if I did get back on. I'd certainly know the next day that I'd actually been on a horse and gone for a ride. I'd certainly be knowing it.
Fantastic. Well, when you do that, please send us a photo so that we can at least celebrate that momentous occasion with you. I
Yep.
mean, Matthew, your journey is just proof that people can reinvent themselves just as a start. You know what I mean? Who would have thought that somebody who started off on the saddle is now the one on the AI saddle and helping others do and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable, and creating these assets and leveraging their expertise. So I know this was sort of unexpected for a lot of people, and it's remarkable that you have actually turned this into extraordinary success. I mean, even the clients that you have dealt with, Andrew Griffiths that you mentioned, and also we had Jenny on the episode that has recommended us to you. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing out there. The impact is being felt. And obviously today we heard it from the horse's mouth how it's all being created. So once again, thank you. Now, for those that are watching right now, if you found value in today's episode, I want you to type in the word Mavenzeal. I will talk to Matthew so that we can engineer some sort of a gift for the people that are going to be typing in at the end of this conversation, because I know there's so much that we covered and we must have lost a few through. I just want to reward those that stuck with us through and through. And if you really enjoyed this video, why don't you share it with a coach or consultant who's also looking to actually start leveraging their expertise and their knowledge. They might actually find what Matthew and the team at Mavenzeal are doing, helping them to really leverage their expertise and reach a wider audience than what they're doing maybe one-to-one. And don't forget to check out Mavenzeal and the courses to companies program so you can scale your own expertise. And of course, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button only if you find these topics useful for you, because you do not want to miss out on an episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we bring you more stories of impact, success, and business growth. I think that's it for now, Matthew. What do you think?
That's great. And look, thank you very much, Prosper, for having me on. And look, I'm always love people like yourself that are just helping again to get the message out there of and helping to create other change in other ways. Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Bye for now.